Welcome to Happiest Places Home, the interior design channel. If you're into interior design, you'll love it here. In this video, you'll be receiving interior designer tips and tricks for hanging art. This won't be your nitty-gritty using this sort of hammer, this sort of stud finder, nothing like that. This is how to hang art so that it looks like it's been done by an interior designer and his or her team. I've also done the work of curating 3 different sets of art that I think would work in harmony throughout any home, and I selected 3 different colorways for that. And as you could see, it was a green, a blue, and then a neutrals with some high contrast. We also have a fresh addition to the living room makeover, and I want to show you that. There is a universal tip that most people will give you to hang art, and that is to hang it at eye level. And they typically say 58 to 60 inches from the floor. That works, but in most circumstances, you're not dealing with that situation at all. There will be furniture that you need to work around and accessories, outlets, all those things, and we're going to talk about those. But now that you know that, and if there aren't any obstacles to that, yes, that's what you do. But let's talk about everything else. All right, straight out of design school, here's some advice that I learned years ago, and that is use the shape of your available space. So leaving the measurements and all of that behind, if the opening that you're looking to fill with art is square, then it would work best if your art was square. If it's a rectangle, whether that's leaning upwards or to the side, then it's a rectangle. And I don't hear that advice everywhere, but I did hear it directly from the lips of a professor, and I think that that's a good school of thought. It doesn't always make sense, but consider that as we consider all of the various other tips. I think this bedroom photo is an excellent example of that, but note that the open space is that one portion over the bed, and that makes sense. But then look at the next one where you can see that woodwork can change that. So if you're creating different paneling and shapes in your wall before you decide what art is going up, then you're going to have to adjust the art accordingly. Typically, you'll want to hang art about 6 to 12 inches above furniture. So good examples of that are this, with it being above the bed. One of the influences to this one in particular is that I also wanted to align it with the middle of the lampshade. And can you see how that makes it look like it makes more sense when you're looking at it? So there are a lot of things to consider, and they'll always be a little different, but begin with the basics, which was 6 to 12 inches above the furniture. The lighting example I mentioned before was very specific, but in general, the lighting beneath a painting, above it, or to the sides of it can change the shape of the space that you're filling, and that means it can change the shape of the painting as needed. It can change the height and length of, or height and width of the painting as needed, and you can see how there are influences to that here and there with the lighting. Here's a good example of lighting that is used improperly, where a lamp should never really cover a large portion of a painting. It should just hug the side. So the placement of the lamp here, it would be better to move it further left and then to move the paintings a touch closer together. Thermostats, light switches, any number of things that contractors put right in the middle of a wall instead of closer to the edge, which would be nice, are going to affect the placement of your art. And in this case, the open space available was between the thermostat and the door frame, and that's what we went with. Now here's another example. If you have an outlet switch in the way, but you do want to have a display of art, a shelf can be a good thing, and this particular one was able to be screwed in far away from the electrical switch. So then it didn't interfere with anything, but we could still display art. Plants, floral, stems, branches, they can all influence the placement of art. And in the case of this one, it's just hung slightly to the left more so that there is more space for that plant in the corner. And not a ton, just a touch. Here's an example of two variations. Let's start with the florals. So a floral can fill a little extra space on the sides. You do want your florals to connect to the painting. I always call it hugging. And then in this case, the furniture is not a foot or even a half foot above this piece of furniture, but chairs sometimes, and especially accent chairs, can be different because they can actually be the accent around the art. And there is an example of that in my home, but I'm just showing you this other person's example right now. Fireplace mantles have their own set of rules, and they change a lot of the other things that I said. So when you have a space above a mantle, then you're matching that space and working with that width. In the rendering that you see now, I wanted to make sure that you can notice the mantelpiece, which is kind of hard and not outlined enough. But once you take a peek at that, then you can see that the art is oriented above the mantelpiece rather than the open space on that wall. And this is a great example because as you can see above the mantelpiece, there's about 6 inches on either side to meet the edge of the mantelpiece. If that mantle was not there, then you would have just taken the entire wall into consideration for the width, and the bottom portion of your open space would have been the linear section of the dining table. I hope that makes sense. I'm sure it does. I thought since we're talking about fireplaces, this was a good time to pop over to my living room to check out the new addition to the living room makeover, and that's this cabinet underneath. I put an electric fireplace there on my own, just hung it on the wall. As you can see, there are wires and all of that. And I wanted something to cover the outlet the best I could and the wires, but to leave some space so that it looked like a very contemporary hearth. And I did do that. And while you're watching me style it, I was going to talk to you a little bit about the cabinet and about a sale that's going on right now. This portion of the video is sponsored by Wayfair, and they are having their Labor Day clearance sale right now. There are thousands of items that are up to 70% off, and they're doing fast and free shipping. If you spend $35, the shipping's free, and as usual, it's fast. So this is a great sale and a good time to take advantage of things that you've had on your Wayfair list, or if you were interested in some of the things from Wayfair that I'm using for my living room. And this cabinet in particular is one that I'm very excited about. I bought this cabinet from Wayfair. It's by their brand eBurn Designs. There are cabinets on it, and it's just the right height to create your own linear fireplace. If I had to pay my builder to do this, it would have been $7,000. But I bought my wonderful electric fireplace from Wayfair. Many of you may know that because I think you went ahead and copied and bought it at my suggestion. Now, there is an updated version to my fireplace. It's longer, which I would love. And then there is a gold one that I wanted to show you that I also would love. And then there's another one that I think is closer to the size of mine and probably looks a lot like mine as well. So I'm going to tag all of those in case you're interested in taking advantage of the sale and grabbing those. I'll also tag my cabinet. So this cabinet is so handy. I love that I'll have storage in the living room, and I'll need it because I do plan on doing some holiday tree decorating videos, and I'm going to stash some of the new ornaments that you saw underneath that cabinet. I just like how the cabinet does blend with the floor, so it looks like it's meant to be there. And I'm using the accessories to just cover the cord, There are other ways of fishing it behind the wall, but I really don't need them in this case. And the heat is not on the fireplace, so don't you worry about those faux florals. When I turn on the heat, I move them. But isn't it a beautiful presentation? Much better than the other cabinet that I just had there that was just laying on its side as a temporary solution. And I've had this on my list for quite some time. And with this, many of you bought it before I did too, at my suggestion, and I was a bit jealous of that. But now I've purchased my own and it's ready to go. There are more things I'd like to do with my living room makeover, but we are so close to being finished with the addition of this. And you can see I have a mess of electronics back there. They are probably going to go in that end cabinet, and I'll just leave it open when we're at home relaxing, but I'll close it when we have company. Well, Lady is a fan of the makeover, and doesn't it look nice in the evening hours? Another oddball example for you is in this storage under our staircase. The door was placed not in the center of the open area where it was in some other neighbors' homes. So things just happen. And I did hang a painting above this as a test, and it did not look correct. It just looked like something was out of place. So this picture ledge kind of evened everything out. When you're hanging a gallery wall that is a very close format, you'll want to try to do 3 to 4 inches in between above and to the side and below. And you don't have to. You could go closer. A lot of people are doing that, but just in my own opinion, I think the 3 to 4 inches works best. Another situation is when you have an extremely high piece of furniture, but some of the accents around it are also high, so you kind of need something up there. In a lot of cases, people put plants or this or that, but in this case, there is art with a picture light above it, and it works perfectly well in this scenario. So compare that to the advice where it's saying it has to be at eye level. So as you can see, there are different rules, but they can be broken depending on the situation. This is a very random example, but it's full coverage. So in this rendering, the plant is covering a large portion of the art, but because it's not on a table directly beneath the art, it works and it's fine. This work of art is the perfect example of open space and how to place it, as well as considering the 6 to 8 inches above the kitchen table from the vantage point. It's perfect. I wanted to show you a few examples where the scale of the piece is not suited to what's around it. And this actually is a style that some people are going with at the moment, a small piece of art here or there. But on the whole, when you're looking at interior designer advice over time, it is more wise to have something to scale. So in the case that you're looking at, you would probably put one on either side of that as well. You want to try to fill the space and only leave, like I said earlier, 6 inches to a foot on either side of your spatial area or landing point. So sometimes it's easier to know what to do by sometimes seeing what not to do. And these are all examples of that. And they are not real life examples. Some of them are created electronically or are just renderings. So I'm not insulting anyone here. Dramatically large art can affect the design of a space, and it truly makes it look more polished and maybe more artsy in a way. And I do wish that that drape was moved to the side there. It's the curtain ring is facing the wrong way. That's why that's doing that. But this is a good time to show you some art that I curated. By the way, it is from Wayfair, but this portion isn't sponsored. I just love their art and their frames. So let me show you some that I put together that I think would look good as a set. I put 3 sets together. So let's start. As we're looking at our collection, don't make a note of how they're hung because they're done electronically and it's just to show off the painting. So we're finished with our how to hang lesson. This is just a collection of 3 different sets of paintings. So we're starting with green, and this one is one of my favorites. I think this looks best with the black frame, even though it could come with a natural frame or a white frame, or it can be wrapped around the canvas. I always like a framed canvas better. That's just my own opinion. But this one is very zen looking. I think you might agree. All of the paintings that I'm showing you are somewhere like in the mid 100s, but hopefully will be on sale with the clearance sale. So you have to check them out through the links. This one is such an interesting piece. I'm showing it to you with the natural frame, but I think later I show you the black frame. If you were to get all of the 3 that I'm recommending, then I would get the black frames. But I think this one has such an impact, and it reminds me of Picasso a touch. But it's wonderful in its own right, whether it's compared to something else or not. This one is the faux texture minimalist. I think it's the beige part that has more texture than the other portions of color. This would be an excellent display. I just feel like there are so many spots that you could put this. It's just that you have to have a space big enough. You do get all 3 for the price, and it is a low price. I think these all work really well together for a number of reasons, but let me show you the first one. The first one to me looks a lot like it's water, but it's supposed to be a landscape. But this type of painting is very in style right now, but also just super dramatic, where you're having just variations in the color as you move down the painting. And to me, this looks like either water or the night sky. And then the next one to me also looks like a beach scene, sort of, except that the sand would be different colors, but that's not what it's meant to be. Again, it's a minimal blue landscape. And if I were to get the blue, I would get them all with the neutral frame. You can either get neutral black, white, or it would be wrapped as a canvas. And with each one, I'm showing you the different size options, but I would always try to go with the biggest size available for your space that you can fit. But I think this one is quite the beautiful one. These are kind of coastal, except with this one, it has the tree ring. So this is representing, earth. And I like the fact that it still has the navy blue if you're going for that dramatic navy blue artwork collection. And I think these are all wonderful. They would work so beautifully together, as you can see. With this one, if you were getting all 3, this is the one that I would get in the smaller size if you needed one portion in a small space. This collection is very similar to the paintings that exist in my own home, but I would love to add all 3 of these to my collection. I love them all. So we'll start out with the one that is just the variations in that shade of brown. So you're seeing like a lighter tan neutral in this, but then it's also moving toward a grayish and then a more earthy brown. And I love that there are 2 that come with this. And I would go with the largest size, like I said. And you don't have to hang these 2 side by side, but they do look wonderful that way. This definitely is on the list of things that I would like to buy, and this is called the Mid-Century Shapes Abstract. It is really striking and attention-grabbing, and I think you can tell from the artwork in my house that I really love that look. So this is so ideal. It also comes in a more stout version, similar to the green ones, where it would look good as a short painting above the bed or the sofa. But I really love the large one. I got so dramatic when I said that, but I do. So I think that I don't think, this is definitely on the list of things that I would like to buy. And the next one is as well. By the way, the reason I didn't say it about the first one is I just painted one like that, and I'll show you in a future video. But this one is called the Organic Modern Watercolor Waves. And this one is made by a different company than the other two. And I've seen, for some reason, that company was showing more photos of people that had it hanging in their homes. If you ever look at the photos where people are showing something that they bought at any retailer, sometimes they don't look great. It's not the item, it's the setting. The positive on the alternative is that everyone who hung this, it looks so good in their home, no matter what color, style, or even if they hung it the wrong way. No good advice was taken. It still looked fabulous. I want to thank you for watching, and if you do use one of my links, I'll get a small commission, but it won't affect your Wayfair price at all. Well, I'll see you guys next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.